there is like a contrived feel that runs through a lot of this stuff. But I think if you part ways with that, just for a minute, like you park that at the door, and if you started to actually do some of this stuff in your day to day, I think and it just becomes, eventually it just becomes, this is your immediate reaction. It's second nature. You know?
Yeah, it comes down to intent too, I think.
Yeah.
Like I reckon that in many ways, if you come at this with an intention of trying to build better relationships with people, which is like the spice of life effectively, then that's all right.
Like that. Spicy.
Spicy life, Arnold. But if you're actually, use kind of how to use it to manipulate others, then it's got a lot more of a sinister feel.
And I think people are more tuned in than the ones with malintent realise. The only challenge is the ones with malintent maybe don't get called out enough, or with a kind of, it's that fake intent. Like if you see like someone that's a few levels up in the organisation, and they ask you this fake question. Gee, it sounds like I've got a real chip on my shoulder here this episode, Lockie.
Been burnt a few times by the boss's boss, have you?
Yeah. And so you just got to.
Do you want to talk about it?
We can talk about it. We can talk about it later. And I think like there's no reason someone shouldn't just call that out then and there. It's like, well, do you actually want to know, or you don't? Imagine that as a response. Jeez. That'd be great,
wouldn't it? Well, you just start talking about something really random to see if they're actually listening.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been in situations where someone's like asked you that question, and then like in the motion of like reaching into their pocket to like pull out their phone, and they've only been, they haven't been listening at all, but they're really not listening by the time they've kind of reached in and pulled out their phone to like bring it here or bring it up to here.
Sometimes I have to say I'm not good at this because I'll want to know at the start, but then I'll be so stressed about something else that I'll drift off, and it must make the other person feel terrible, And it's it's a weakness that I'm a bit of a daydreamer sometimes.
Yeah, like you kind of start abstracting out other thoughts.
Yeah, or worrying about something or that kind of thing.
Do you think that's like a symptom of our like scatterbrain age? Like scatterbrain, technology driven. We're skipping from one thing to another. Like, do you reckon back when they were penning letters to one another, this was as much of a problem? Because I think that's pretty common, Lockie. I suspect a lot of people do that. Perhaps
it's hard to know. I mean, the weird thing about those times, whenever I read about like Benjamin Franklin or one of these old school biographies, is like you just like, I'm worried if I don't hear from. If you didn't hear from your partner for a day, you'd be like, what's happened? Where are they? Are they okay? People would go away for months and not hear from their significant others or their families, or they'd receive a letter that their child had died or something because, infant mortality was so high back then. But you couldn't just fly home to be with them. There's this real feeling of the unknown. What's happening. We don't really suffer from that much anymore.